Failing to stay on top of licensing and the fonts you and your team use can have tremendous legal and financial consequences. That's true whether you're a political candidate, a television network, a sole proprietorship making something as simple as a blog theme, one of the world's largest companies, or even just an entertainer. Some of these lawsuits resulted because the organization using the font or fonts in question didn't read and adhere to the license purchased. Most of these organizations, however, were victims themselves. They were victims of the employees, contractors, or vendors who created materials for the organization and snuck in unlicensed or improperly licensed fonts. While ignorantly using officially sanctioned fonts against their license is common, the far greater risk faced by organizations is in unauthorized typefaces making their way into brand communications and media. Designers are creative people. They want options, they want variety, and they love fonts. So they have a tendency to want to use different typefaces. And designers, especially in-house designers, have a tendency to feel, and often justifiably so, that purchasing new fonts is a very low priority for IT and management. As a result, designers often sneak fonts onto their computers and the network. And those fonts they sneak in aren't necessarily willfully used against license. In most cases, these designers bring in fonts they have every reason to believe they can use. For example, they add a typekit font that has a standard portfolio license, but they use it on your website that gets more than 1 million page views a month. That's a violation of the license inherent in that user's Creative Cloud subscription. Supposedly free fonts are another big issue. There are, in fact, thousands of free fonts available for download. They aren't always truly free, though. Many are pirated copies of commercial fonts, stolen and then redistributed while being presented as free or public domain. Others are knockoffs of commercial typefaces, and their use can get you in just as much hot water as if you use the originals without license. But many designers will bring these fonts into your projects thinking they really are free to use. If you're a single-person company, hopefully this clip has convinced you of the risks of using unlicensed fonts or using fonts contrary to their licenses. For organizations with multiple personnel, you need to combat the use of unauthorized typefaces. That starts with identifying and providing easy access to the typefaces and fonts that you want used with your brand. License those fonts for the number of personnel who need to use them, and then clearly communicate in your brand style guide their proper use. That's your primary, secondary, and any specialty or additional typefaces. Creatives work best within a basic structure, so tell them which typefaces they can use and which they can't. Give them large enough type families to allow them to do their jobs and to be creative. Periodically review your brand fonts and the list of other authorized fonts with designers. The people who use your typefaces are going to be the first ones to notice when symbols and characters are missing or are less than perfect. They'll also be the first ones to say that different or new fonts may be required for certain media or types of documents or to present a certain image. Be willing to look at new fonts designers present and suggest, and to invest in licensing from time to time. You don't simply purchase fonts one time and then never again for 10 years. Bolster your style guide and font use with corporate policy. Include provisions against and consequences for the unauthorized use or installation of outside fonts. Employ font management software. We'll talk about font management software in the Distribute and Control Fonts clip, how it can help distribute fonts to your team and keep them organized, but server-based font management software can help prevent installation of unauthorized fonts. It can lock down system font folders and actually prevent the installation of fonts on users' workstations. Finally, perform periodic audits of font licensing. Even with system prohibitions against installing fonts, it's important to check from time to time that only authorized fonts are in use, that they're only being used according to their licenses, and that you aren't actually paying for licenses you don't need. Once proper licensing has been purchased, it's crucial to establish and maintain licensing compliance systems to prevent font assets, tiny pieces of software that are easily and ignorantly shared and reshared, from being used out of license. Now, let's take a look at managing, distributing, and controlling your brand fonts throughout your team.